The anime starts with a young man running hysterically up a staircase, pursued by many students. He stops at the edge of the rooftop, in a miserable state. He finally gives up, throws himself off the school roof, and says to himself, "Finally, this horrible nightmare is over." As he falls, a strange light appears, and a beautiful girl emerges from it. She whispers to him, "Young man, was it you who ate the love chocolate?" ##### before the disaster. The events flash back to before this tragedy. We meet our young protagonist, known as Zhang Haoai, we'll call him Haoai, who loves his quiet, simple life, far from trouble. He completes his duties and takes his rights. As the class begins, one of the school's most beautiful girls, Xiaozi, or Xiaolan, enters. Everyone admires her, but she chooses Haoai and, with a very embarrassed face, tells him she is pregnant with his child. Yes, the boy surprises everyone, even the teacher in the very first episode. Everyone immediately starts insulting and threatening Haoai for defiling the school's beauty. Xiaozi makes things worse by telling him the child is 3 months old. Haoai denies the matter, stating he doesn't even know her. Everyone gets angry at him for denying the girl and the child and starts chasing him. Someone uploads his photo and what he allegedly did on social media, and now the whole school knows about his action. While running from the other students, Xiaozi tells Haoai that because of the pregnancy, she can't run well, so he must be more careful with her. He tells her to stop her ridiculous joke, but before long, the crowd returns. He reaches a corridor and decides to attack instead of run. The boy truly fights like Bruce Lee and knocks them all down. But that's not the end. He is dragged into the girls' bathroom by the football club girls, who hit him with a ball. Tang asks him if the news on the internet is true and demands an explanation. When he tries to explain, she hits him and asks him what happened during the days they spent together. She asks him a second time, with a tennis ball in her hand, about his relationship with Xiaozi. When he asks, "Who are you anyway?" he gets beaten up again. After they leave the bathroom, another girl, Linen, comes and hugs him. She starts hitting and cursing him for cheating and abandoning his children, begging him to return home, as their sons are waiting for him. Everyone is stunned by the tragedy. The girls begin to fight, and Haoai uses the opportunity to escape. #### The confession and the intervention. This leads back to the start of the anime, with him running up the stairs. On the rooftop, he meets Xiaozi again. He is cornered by the angry mob and the girls waiting for his explanation. He yells at them, "I don't know who these girls are. If you don't believe me, I'm ready to throw myself off the roof." Since no one believes him, he throws himself off. Suddenly, a strange light from the sky stops time, and Haoai lands safely on the ground. A mysterious girl descends from the sky and asks if he was the one who ate the love chocolate. He remembers seeing a cake left on the rooftop that he shared with some girls. The girl explains that anyone who ate the chocolate on the cake will fall in love with him. She introduces herself as May, the angel of love, and congratulates him on his life filled with love. Haoai yells at her, demanding his peaceful life back, as his problems will only increase from now on. She tells him the solution is to satisfy the girls, especially by fulfilling some of their wishes. She then leaves, and time resumes. The crowd comes down looking for him but doesn't find him. After they leave, Haoai thinks about Xiaozi, whom he didn't see. He starts imagining her committing suicide because of him, so he returns to the rooftop. He finds Xiaozi crying, sad because of his death. He decides to take her on a date the next day to appease her, and she certainly accepts. #### The wish of the rich girl. Back at home, he reviews what happened and is surprised an angel of love and love chocolate. Nothing could be weirder. But at the same time, he is happy to have a date waiting for him with a beautiful girl. The date is at the hospital, where Haoai wanted to confirm the truth about her pregnancy. The results were exactly as he hoped, negative. His joy is interrupted when Xiaozi tells him that if there is no child, they should certainly try to make one now. He is terrified by her words in public. He decides to take her home and explain the situation to her family. The surprise is that Xiaozi is a rich girl, born with a silver spoon in her mouth. The size of the mansion and the number of servants make Haoai rethink his ability to satisfy her wishes, as she truly has everything. Xiaozi tells him she remembers the day he confessed to her in front of her family, where he said, "I am Haoai, and despite my poverty, I will do everything I can to take care of Xiaozi." Although her father rejected him, he still wants to try. A maid opens the door, and Hao Ai introduces himself as Xiaozi's close friend. He learns that Xiaozi's father rarely comes home. But problems arrive quickly. The servants find out Xiaozi is pregnant with the young man in front of them and start hitting him for tarnishing the young lady's reputation. Xiaozi tries to separate them, saying she isn't pregnant, but the servants continue to hit him. Xiaozi takes him to her room to protect him. There, it seems there is a connection between them, but it is cut short by the servants again. Hao Ai realizes that the problem with the girl in front of him is her father's weak love and attention towards her. Hao Ai gets angry and takes the maid's phone, who is talking to Xiaozi's father. He yells at the father. In a few seconds, the mansion is surrounded by many helicopters and cars. Hao Ai regrets his actions internally and wishes he hadn't insulted the father, but he knows it is the only way to free himself and save Xiaozi from the love magic. At first glance, Hao Ai feels a kind of dread and authority from the father, but he relaxes when the father asks the guards to lower their weapons. Immediately after, however, he asks them to beat Hao Ai up for his audacity. Xiaozi shows her father the negative pregnancy results. The father asks Hao Ai why he lied. Hao Ai replies, "So you would stop working and see your daughter." He tells the father that even though he provided all the material things, he couldn't provide the affection, love, and warmth of a family, and that expressing his love with money is very wrong. He shows him the proof that her happiest days were only a result of her having lunch with her father. Xiaozi feels emptiness inside the big mansion. He asks the father to truly reflect on his actions. After all this brave behavior, Hao Ai escapes as soon as he reaches the gate. The father actually seems to be thinking about what Hao Ai said, and even the servants thank Hao Ai for his courage and stance. ###. The spell is broken. After running a long distance, Xiaozi appears behind Hao Ai and tells him that he hasn't completely left the mansion after all that running. Xiaozi thanks him and tries to kiss him, but she evaporates. Mei, the angel of love, reappears and assures him that Xiaozi didn't evaporate, the spell was simply broken. She is surprised by how quickly he did it. He decides to return home, while Xiaozi finally feels her father's love after reflecting on his behavior. The next day at the university, he finds many posters about him. Hao Ai sneaks into the department to avoid trouble, but it seems another girl is looking for him. In the department, Xiaozi comes to thank Hao Ai. It seems she remembers him even after the magic. Hao Ai calls out to Mei in shock and asks her why Xiaozi remembers him. Mei replies that only the fake memories were erased after the spell broke, but the real memories remain, and now Xiaozi is genuinely interested in Hao Ai from her heart. ###. A new threat, Swooly. Mei disappears again. Suddenly, the door explodes, and knives fly towards Hao Ai from the new girl named Swooly. Hao Ai tries to make her understand that the situation is not what she thinks and there is no relationship between him and Xiaozi. She decides to confirm the misunderstanding by giving Hao Ai a kiss that makes him melt and melts the watching students, too. Swooly confirms that Hao Ai is hers. Her mother comes and orders her to return with her to America. She will never let her date a young man like Hao Ai and will never allow a relationship between them. She hits Swooly hard and carries her away against her will, asking Hao Ai to pray for his life due to her daughter's mischievousness. Mei reappears and asks Hao Ai about Swooly. He tells her that she is a childhood friend and also ate the love chocolate, but the magic didn't make her this way. She was always an aggressive and overbearing person who treated Hao Ai harshly against his will. Xiaozi sneaks up behind him to listen closely to his words and understands that Swooly is his childhood friend. He now has a new problem, so she wants him to forget about their date tomorrow. But he interrupts her and asks for the date, location and time, as he will not go back on his word no matter what happens. ###. The Tang confrontation. While he is at school, Tang slaps him hard and tells him that she is breaking up with him definitively. As she leaves, Hao Ai yells at her, "I accept the breakup." He adds that with her violent behavior, who would even want to be in a relationship with her? Tang seems hurt by his harsh words. Mei appears and asks Hao Ai what is going on. He tells her he was beaten up, and even worse, he was dumped in a relationship he didn't even choose. He feels worthless and disposable. He then asks Mei if ending the relationship can nullify the spell, but she tells him it won't be that simple. A woman's heart is more complicated than that. Since she wanted to break up, it means there is some kind of problem. Mei disappears again. Hao Ai goes to look for Tang and finds her training some students so harshly that they are begging for mercy. She treats them like animals, throws water at them, and insults them. Hao Ai has to intervene. He asks her to stop what she is doing to people because of what is happening to her, asking if she hasn't had enough. After a brief altercation, Tang ends up soaking wet. She tells Hao Ai that she finally knows the reason for his betrayal and leaves. The students thank Hao Ai, telling him that Tang has changed a lot during this short period. While Tang is showering, she sees a vision of Hao Ai yelling. She curses Hao Ai and his family, confirming again that she must start over. Hashtag the cosplay festival. The next day, Hao Ai is woken up by his mother, finding that he is very late for his date with Ziazi. He finds Swuli in front of him, who asks if he is late for a date or what. He tells her he is just late for fetching some books. Swuli takes his room key and tells him she will fetch his books for him, and all he has to do is stay in his room. She locks the door. Hao Ai gets nervous, afraid he won't be able to attend his first date in his life. Swuli asks Hao Ai's parents not to open the door for him so he doesn't lose focus on his studies. Hao Ai truly loses his temper and decides to leave his room through the window to their neighbor's window. The neighbor's daughter sees him and screams in fear, the date or the diploma. While Ziazi waits for Hao Ai, she remembers Swuli's words and actions in class in front of everyone. She feels a kind of weakness and loss, but her Prince Charming arrives for the date despite his delay. They sit for a while. Hao Ai daydreams about an exciting date and gifts, even imagining himself as handsomer. But back in reality, the date is awkward, no one knows how to start a proper conversation. Hao Ai finds the solution when he sees an anime festival being held nearby and asks Ziazi to accompany him. The convention is indeed full of cosplayers and doujin stalls. While the two happily wander around, Swuli returns home but finds that the bird has found a way to escape. She is even happier with what Hao Ai did, making the pursuit harder and better. Back at the festival, photographers start shoving to take pictures of someone. It's Tang in a cat girl cosplay. Her expression completely changes when she sees Hao Ai, and she feels extremely embarrassed. Her embarrassment makes the photos even more beautiful. She asks Hao Ai what he is doing here and if he came to laugh at her while she's disguised. In the crowd, she manages to see two girls from the sports club, so she decides to retreat to stir up some trouble and cause them emotional distress. Outside the festival, Swuli is coming to forcefully take Hao Ai, and people think she is a cosplayer. Back to the three, Hao Ai tells Tang that he never dreamed or expected that she has such an unexpected side, and he thinks it's kind of cute. She asks if he is mocking her again and tells him she is hiding because of him now. On the contrary, Hao Ai had previously mocked them because of their lack of beauty compared to other girls, even bullying them, and everyone started avoiding the girls. But Tang helped them in their distress, and now she is afraid of the girls discovering this side of her, thinking she was mocking them too. While the two are arguing, Ziazi genuinely wonders if Hao Ai likes cat girls and if she should cosplay too to attract his attention. After a lot of arguing, the conversation ends with the usual hatred between them. A cosplay competition is announced, but Tang is alone, and participants must be in a group. The two girls decide to form a group and dress Hao Ai in cosplay as well to complete the number. The result, upon seeing it, makes Hao Ai vomit, especially after imagining what he would do. The vomit is scattered on the ground. Swuli watches them and falls in love with the sight of her prince, deciding that after she catches him, she will make him do many things like this. Tang finds that her clothes have been ruined because she is the strongest candidate to win the competition. She is deeply saddened. She starts cursing Hao Ai again for no reason. It turns out the culprits are the former cosplayer girls. Tang's anger is also because the torn clothes hold a dear place for her. She managed to win one of the first competitions in her life with these clothes. Hao Ai feels the pressure on Tang and decides to participate in the competition to help her, but first, he needs to go to the bathroom. In the bathroom, he sees a person he doesn't understand and is surprised, and rightly so. Mei appears, and Hao Ai tells her about the problem he is in and the ways to win. Looking at Mei, his angel of love, he finds the appropriate solution to his dilemma. He trips, and the audience is truly angry at this slip-up in front of them, but Hao Ai manages to turn the tide by acting shy. His dignity is gone once again. Away from the stage, Mei and Ziazi are both looking for Tang. The host takes Hao Ai backstage and asks him to bring his group, or he will have to perform his show alone, otherwise they will be disqualified. Hao Ai indeed starts performing the show alone, but he is truly terrible, so terrible that the audience was expecting to see Xiaoshan, which is Tang's stage name. It seems Tang is actually watching what is happening and sees Hao Ai desperately trying his best. But unfortunately, as is clear, his singing is an utter failure. This failure severely angers the audience, and they demand Tang come down to the stage. He decides to use the stage as a platform to send his message to Tang, telling her he was genuinely shocked when he learned that her hobby is cosplaying, but she hides her hobby from people because of her pride in what they consider wrong, and that she should do what she loves without restrictions. He demands she come down to the stage to see what she can do. As if by magic, the staircase breaks, and she falls onto the stage, just as he said. Before she falls, Mei notices it. A bright light appears, saving Tang and even changing her and Hao Ai's clothes in a scene of the devil rescuing the princess. The audience is surprised and disbelieving of what they saw, and they start applauding this fiery show. Hao Ai says the famous line, "Are you okay?" The host announces the winner of the show, the duo in front of them, due to the massive audience reaction. Xiaozi in the audience truly wishes she were in Tang's place. But Tang orders Hao Ai to tell the truth and how what happened, happened. In the corner, Swuli is truly angry at the scene and wants to destroy it, but she overhears the girls who ruined the clothes confessing their intention to steal Hao Ai. She directs her anger towards them instead of Tang. In the break room, Tang kicks Hao Ai out because it is the girls' changing room, but he reminds her who was the reason he was wearing girls' clothes, and moreover, his clothes are right there. He changes his clothes first, and the spell ends, and the clothes are gone. Hao Ai receives a very strong slap and is kicked out naked, exposed to the elements. But it's good that Tang didn't forget to throw his clothes to him. Mei appears before him again, and he yells at her, managing to frighten her with what he has. After putting on his clothes, he talks to her. She tells him that among the other angels, she is considered the worst, as she can't use the magic well. Despite this, he thanks her for saving Tang's life and thanks her for the help in winning the competition and fulfilling Tang's wish. Xiaozi comes and asks Hao Ai to go home. He, in turn, asks Tang for her opinion on returning, but she tells him to go alone and that she doesn't want him to wait for her. In reality, however, she truly wanted him to stay by her side and not go back. Do you understand now why a woman's heart is truly complicated, and we men must suffer to understand it? After reaching the station, Xiaozi thanks Hao Ai for the fun she had today. He stays and waits for Tang until she arrives and asks her a mind-blowing request. Literally, with no date or feelings, he tells her to come sleep at his house. She slaps him. Here, he confirms that the spell has worn off, but he truly wishes she would express herself without fear someday. #### late night talks. At night, Hao Ai is looking at a hotel room. It seems he went to visit a girl and she asks him to enter. It turns out that Hao Ai went to see Professor Ranji, his teacher, who is somewhat considered an older sister figure to Hao Ai. He always visits her during his difficult days for advice or just to talk. Don't let your mind wander too far. He first yells at her a little for neglecting her apartment and the chaos that fills the place. Then she asks him about the cause of his problems and if he is fighting with his girlfriend Swuli. But he confirms to her that Swuli is only a childhood friend. They have been together since elementary school. Because he excelled over her in studies, she developed a kind of complex towards him. That's why, after a while in middle school, Hao Ai started letting Swuli surpass him in grades, so she developed some arrogance and decided to challenge Hao Ai on the upcoming grades. If she won, he would go with her to America. However, Hao Ai actually wins this time so he doesn't have to go. Swuli is sad because Hao Ai doesn't want to go with her. He tells her he needs some time apart. The teacher asks what the real reason for his visit is, so he starts telling his story since he ate the love chocolate. While he is telling the story, Xiaozi is nervous about whether to send a message to Hao Ai or not and what she should write in the message. After Hao Ai finished the story, she told him that he is indeed an attractive and respectable person, so naturally, the girls will love him, and she falls asleep after drinking too much. The next morning, Tang has gotten over her anger and is treating the students slightly better, but not by much. Hao Ai visits her, but Tang pulls him away from the hall so they don't cause a fuss, given that they have already broken up. However, he tells her that the matter is important and everyone must listen to what he has to say, as he challenges the girls in the hall. The loser will grant the winner's wish, whatever it may be. The rules are as follows. Hao Ai wins if even one girl manages to get better results than him in this semester's exams, or if Hao Ai achieves the top rank in the school. The strangest thing about the challenge is that Hao Ai is currently ranked 153rd in the school, while one of the girls on Tang's side is ranked 10th in the school. Thus, his chance of winning is almost nil. The girls accept this challenge, considering it an easy and certain victory. Hao Ai begins to work diligently throughout the week to win the bet. When Tang sees him studying hard in the library, she wonders what he is planning. Later that evening, a storm hits. Outside, Swuli stands alone in the rain. Hao Ai rushes to her, but Swuli keeps crying, saying she is not a disgrace and that something or someone has returned. Hao Ai comforts her, telling her she never was and never will be a disgrace or a disappointment, before hugging her and taking her home. Her mother thanks him greatly for what he did. Due to this, it seems Hao Ai didn't get enough sleep. At the school gate, he meets Ziazi, who suggests he take a break from the exam due to his condition, but he tells her he is fine. The sports girls come to him again and begin to mock his exam speed, thinking he has given up. After school ends, Ziazi walks with Hao Ai, and he asks her to accompany him to help choose a suit. The next day, the girls boast about their guaranteed victory, believing Hao Ai gave up, and they even think about what punishment they will enforce on him. Hao Ai arrives with a cosplay outfit and tells Tang that she will wear these clothes for 2 weeks in school when the results come out, as he is sure of his overwhelming victory. After an argument between him and the girls, the results appear, showing Hao Ai's superiority. He has become the first-ranked student in the school, rising from 153rd place. He tells Tang that she must wear the outfit, which the girls mockingly label as pervert stuff. Tang, due to her pride, accepts this, though she chooses the outfit from an anime exhibition. The girls do not accept the result and decide to challenge his score, but it is confirmed that the grading is not mistaken, having been distributed among several professors. Hao Ai couldn't have cheated because Professor Ranji was monitoring him. The girls are asked to return to their positions, even though the professor was also surprised and disbelieving of the results. Tang indeed fulfills her conditions and wears the clothes. Hao Ai comes and tells her that he did half the work for her, and now it is time for her to help herself by believing in herself and trusting her decisions and personality in front of others and behind their backs. Lin wonders if Hao Ai has forgotten about his family matter. The family arc, Lin Yuan and the Magic Kids. Hao Ai goes to the rooftop and asks Mei if he has ended the Tang matter forever, but she tells him she doesn't know for sure either. Then Ziazi comes and asks him why he is talking alone, as she cannot see Mei. Tang then throws her cosplay clothes at Hao Ai and tells him that next time, he should bring clothes that fit her measurements better. Despite this, she genuinely thanks him for helping her through her difficult times. The next day, Hao Ai asks Mei about the person who returned, which Swuli mentioned. Mei informs him that it is most likely her ex-boyfriend, who is a key factor in how her personality changed to what it is now. Then, some children jump on Hao Ai, calling him dad. Hao Ai's reaction is exactly what you'd expect: who are you and why are you calling me dad? Lin Yuan tells him that he hasn't returned home in a long time, and the children missed him, so she brought him. The poor guy is almost fainting from the shock, but he manages the situation and asks the kids to go home and that he will follow later, and that they shouldn't call him dad in school. After they leave, he starts banging his head against the glass. He never expected the magic to be so strong that it would create children. The situation has become much more complicated for him. Mei explains that the chocolate is for granting wishes and desires, and the longer the wish takes to fulfill, the stronger the desire grows. This means he won't have just 2 children. Over time, the matter will get much bigger, and he will have many children. Outside, Lin Yuan boasts to the 2 children that their father is the first rank in the school, and she is the second rank. Lin is called to the principal's office, so she leaves the children unsupervised, asking them to stay put and not move alone. As soon as she leaves, they wander off. When she returns and doesn't find them, she asks their dad to help her. Hao Ai calms Lin and asks her to go back to the school gate, as the children might go there. Meanwhile, the boy is messing up experiments in the lab, thinking he's a hero, and the girl is crying somewhere. Ziazi decides to help the girl find her father. The boy drinks some juice and goes back to causing trouble, entering the girl's changing room. Hao Ai follows him and is caught red-handed by Tang, who interrogates him and demands an apology for his actions. But the boy intervenes to save his father by falling and tearing off Tang's disguise. The audience applauds and cheers him, asking for more, having witnessed a scene they will never see again. Hao-ai asks everyone not to blame the child, saying he will bear the consequences of his actions. After the problem, he takes the children to their mother and tries to logically explain to her that it is impossible for them to have 8-year-old children since they are both only 20 years old, but she is adamant, telling him they are truly their children. Mei appears and tells Hao-ai that the magic is very powerful, it doesn't just manipulate feelings but also memories and many other things, to the extent that even people close to the affected, such as the returned man, Swuli's ex, can be influenced by the magic. He decides to take the three of them to his house. Lin considers the request and then accepts. On their way, Hao-ai keeps wondering if Lin's family has really been affected by the magic or not. As soon as they reach the door, Lin's mother throws a knife at Hao-ai's face and insults him, asking how he dares to come as the father of this family after all this time and not having seen them, threatening him with the knife. He begs her, "Madam, please stop." The mother gets angrier at Hao-ai because he called her madam instead of mom, and decides to hit him, but Lin asks her to stop so the children don't see more violence. As soon as they enter the house, Hao-ai realizes that Lin comes from a poor family. They then sit down for dinner. After dinner, Lin's mother goes to a traditional party and warns the two against excessive play during the night, implying intimacy. Meanwhile, Xiaozi is confused about whether to call Hao-ai to set a time to go out on a date. Back with Hao-ai and the family, the father helps the children with their school homework and plays with them a little until Lin comes and asks the children to sleep. Hao-ai watches a little TV until the children fall asleep, and now it is time for the parents to sleep. Hao-ai braces himself and begins to contemplate the situation, but he refuses to sleep with Lin because she is under the influence of magic. It would be truly immature of him and contrary to his human morals to take advantage of her during a time she cannot control herself. However, this refusal does not stop Lin from pressuring Hao-ai, as in their minds, they are already a family with 2 children, so what they are about to do would not be new to them. The phone rings at the right time. The caller seems to be Xiaozi, who has finally decided to ask Hao-ai out on a date to the amusement park this holiday. Hao-ai naturally accepts. After the call, Hao-ai uses it as an excuse to return to his home, but Lin asks Hao-ai to take the 2 children to the amusement park on the same holiday, which creates a hole in his schedule. His angel and devil appear. The angel tells him not to forget his family duties, and the devil tells him to choose what is more important to him. He decides to take the family to the park this Sunday. He calls Xiaozi again to ask her to cancel the date, but as soon as he hears her crying, he changes his mind and tells her he won't be late for the date, cursing his good heart that always gets him into trouble. The double date dilemma. The promised day has arrived. Hao-ai enters the amusement park with his family, choosing the Ferris wheel as the first ride to enjoy the beautiful scenery. But Hao-ai has another plan. He will spend an hour and a half with Lin, and as soon as 10 o'clock strikes, he will go to his date with Xiaozi. After trying many nauseating rides, he goes to vomit and rest. Mei appears before him and tells him that if he needs help, he can ask her, but he replies that humans have enough will and strength, and he will prove to her that his plan will succeed brilliantly, she only needs to observe him. He rushes to his scheduled meeting place with Xiaozi and finds her already waiting for him. He apologizes for his delay. She tells him that she has something important to tell him. Hao-ai gets nervous from her words and appearance and starts thinking that she will confess to him now. Xiaozi indeed wants to confess, but a photographer interrupts them for souvenirs. During the photo shoot, the photographer asks the couple to be more intimate, but they are both very embarrassed, especially Hao-ai, who considers himself inferior to Xiaozi due to his humble background. Xiaozi shatters this thought by hugging him and completing the expression of her feelings with a kiss, which makes Hao-ai wonder how a girl like Xiaozi could admire and have feelings for him, thinking perhaps her action was just an unintentional mistake. Mei appears and tells him that despite his skills, he has some stupidity. Hao-ai replies, "I know I helped her a few times, but she can't just like me based on those things alone." But Mei tells Hao-ai that what he might consider small, unimportant actions are big and great things for girls, so he shouldn't underestimate the matter. Hao-ai goes to search for a gift for Lin because time is really pressuring him. While searching for a gift, Hao-ai meets an old acquaintance named Dong, who asks Hao-ai to protect Swuli, informing him that the rumors about Swuli's ex-boyfriend returning were true. He hopes Hao-ai will try to look after Swuli a little during this period, as her ex-boyfriend has certainly returned to hurt her again. He also meets Tang in the store. There, things get very complicated for Hao Ai, Lin or Xiazi. He decides to ask Tang for help to go and keep Xiazi company while he takes care of Lin's matter. When Tang meets Xiazi, Lin feels afraid that she has bothered Hao Ai with her actions and made him run away from confronting her. Hao Ai returns to Lin and the two children with a gift, but Lin tells Hao Ai that he shouldn't force himself for their sake. Here, Hao Ai understands that despite the difficult circumstances Lin is going through, she doesn't give up, and a smile is always on her face. He decides to make them happy this time. He registers for a quiz competition to buy ice cream for the children and starts answering every question, leaving no room for other participants, until he wins the prize. Hao Ai takes the children to the ice cream parlor. Lin thanks Hao Ai for the day with the children, even though it was a big responsibility. She says she is truly happy, and that he is now a little like that person. Hao Ai understands that he is close to solving the mystery of Lin's wish and what she wants, and he just needs to push himself further to break the magic. He asks Lin a sensitive question. Although he has met her mother, he doesn't know who her father is. He seems to have touched a sensitive nerve, as Lin begins to cry. But he keeps pressuring her, asking if her father left her and her mother and never came back for her. Lin breaks her silence and asks Hao Ai to stop talking. After leaving the ice cream shop, Xiazi and Tang see them. They interrogate Hao Ai, asking if he brought the two of them together for another date or what. But he tells them the story and what happened. The two girls sympathize with Lin and think the children are her younger siblings, even though the father is right in front of them, hanging in the air. The two girls agree to let Hao Ai go because he is helping someone with a problem, but they warn that if he lies to them again, there will be dire consequences for his actions. Before Hao Ai leaves, Xiazi asks him to talk to her if he needs help with anything. After he leaves, Tang asks Xiazi if she is truly fine with letting the one she loves go to another girl. Xiazi replies that Hao Ai is not her property to stop or keep. Hao Ai meets Lin again and tries to apologize to her for his harsh words, but Lin is understanding of what happened. Hao Ai asks the previous photographer to photograph them again. The photographer is surprised by the girl in front of him. In the morning he was with one girl, and now another, with children calling him dad. Even after taking Lin home, Lin warns Hao Ai about asking her mother about her father, or there will be dire consequences for his actions. Hao Ai thinks of another way to find out Lin's past because, according to Mei, the wish is related to something about memories. What better place than school to search for Lin's memories? The search for the father. He goes to her elementary school but is chased by the guard for being an intruder. Unfortunately, he asks about Lin's former teacher and is also chased by everyone until he bumps into Lin's old teacher, who is surprised to hear Lin's name. The teacher tells Hao Ai that Lin was a cheerful girl until the day her father left her. She kept waiting for him in the same spot every day, but he never returned. After the divorce from her mother, Lin's condition began to deteriorate little by little. Hao Ai asks the lady if she can give him the father's address, but unfortunately, she cannot fulfill his wish. While he is relaxing and thinking of a way, Mei appears before him and asks what he will do to avoid hurting Lin and find the father without asking her mother. He decides to use his secret weapon. He goes to the police station and starts turning off the lights and creating events that look like strange phenomena to scare the police officer in the place. Then Hao Ai decides to pounce on him. It turns out that the police officer is a friend of Hao Ai, whom he asks to search for information about Lin Yuan. The officer asks if she is his girlfriend or what, but Hao Ai tells him to search for the girl's background, not her. He finds that the father's file is missing, meaning the father has left the country or something. Hao Ai asks the officer to inform him if he finds anything. Outside, Mei appears to Hao Ai and begins to talk about her love for earth food. He asks her to stop saying nonsense and rubbish. He is currently in a difficult problem and is not interested in eating. When he returns home, he finds his father in a gloomy state. He asks him if they were robbed or if they have become poor or what. But his father tells him that a man must endure and be patient with life because they are coming. He asks who is coming. Hao Ai tries to call the police, but the person arriving is Swuli. Hao Ai gets nervous, but she grabs him and drags him toward his room, and his father advises him to use his will to survive because Swuli wants to force him to do the deed with her. Hao Ai refuses. With a simple word to Swuli, who is acting unruly, Hao Ai tells her to wait for him while he showers. The lover stayed in the bathroom for 3 hours until he was sure that Swuli had fallen asleep. Seeing her, he remembers a moment in school when she gave him a gift. It seems that Hao-Ai's friend in the police department found something and calls Hao-Ai, giving him 20 potential numbers for the person he is looking for. Swooly wakes up and tells him they will continue what they started. Did they complete it or not? A question we don't know the answer to. In school, Swooly tells Hao-Ai not to be late tonight. Other young men get jealous of him and start hitting him, while Lin is in front of him, saying, "Did your heart waver again?" During the break, Hao-Ai decides to try the numbers he got. The first number was expired, the second was for a girl, and the third was for a somewhat shady person who tried to flirt with Hao-Ai. He kept trying the numbers until he reached the last one, which seems to genuinely belong to Lin's father. But he decides not to answer the phone until Hao-Ai gives up and falls asleep from exhaustion. At the end of the day, he decides to call again. Indeed, Mr. Lin decides to pick up the phone. Hao-Ai says that he is the man's son-in-law. Mr. Lin is a little surprised and thinks his ex-wife got married again, but Hao-Ai tells him that he is Lin Yuan's husband and has 2 children with her, and he actually wishes to visit Lin a little, as she misses him. During the call, Mr. Lin seems nervous. Hao-Ai is shocked by the father's statement that Lin Yuan is not his daughter, but just a girl he was raising. Overwhelmed by the shock, Hao-Ai decides to ask Lin's mother directly. He finds them already fighting over the father's topic. Lin runs away from her mother. Hao-Ai asks about the matter, what happened, and where the father is. The mother shouts at him, ordering him to leave and not bother her. But an old woman decides to tell Hao-Ai the complete story, which truly shocks him. Mei asks him about Lin's condition and problem. Hao-Ai replies that he truly regrets intervening in this matter. Hao-Ai tells Mei the story behind Lin. Lin's mother wanted to marry Lin's biological father, and on their wedding day, an emergency arose for the father, who worked in the police, and he was forced to go on a duty call, but it was his last call. After the funeral, Lin's mother met someone who had admired her for a long time, Mr. Lin, who loved her and decided to take great care of her and the child together. However, his parents refused his marriage to a divorced woman. As soon as the two married, he was kicked out by his parents, not to return until after their divorce. Years later, his parents' condition deteriorated greatly due to their age, so he decided to divorce the woman he loved to be a dutiful son to his parents. This was the reason for his divorce and never returning. Mei says that Mr. Lin is excused in this case and has a reason, so he cannot be blamed at all. But Hao-Ai replies that everyone in this relationship is responsible for this problem, and he truly does not want to intervene more. Whatever happens, happens. The mother should have explained the matter to the girl, and the man should have taken responsibility for the family's expenses. Families are not something simple you enter and exit quickly. If the father himself cannot endure the family's problems, then why should Hao-Ai get involved in this matter? Hao-Ai's mission is to erase the effects of the magic, not to be a solver of family problems. Mei tries to calm him down and convince him to change his position by saying that Mr. Lin actually kept the phone with him all these years, in addition to raising Lin from a young age, which is proof of his love despite the circumstances. All Hao-Ai needs to do is try harder. But Hao-Ai is fed up with these matters. At home, his mother asks his father to help him a little because he seems to be in a difficult state, but the father tells her that Hao-Ai is an adult and must deal with his problems himself. In a moment of anger, Hao-Ai sees his photo with Lin and the children and returns to his senses, talking to himself a little and reproaching himself for giving up too quickly. He must solve this problem sooner or later. Mei hears him and is happy with his words, telling him that he must be a man of his word. The climax, a tragic trick. The next morning, Hao-Ai calls Mr. Lin to persuade him to return and meet Lin again. All he has to do is make a small sacrifice for the happiness of everyone, as the long journey begins with a simple step. But he hangs up on him. Nevertheless, Hao-Ai decides to annoy the man by calling him again at all times until he answers. Mei laughs at this trick. Hao-Ai asks her why the magic effects haven't appeared on the other girls these days. Has he really gotten rid of everything related to the magic and defeated it? But she shatters his hopes by saying that the magic has its ways of working, it is stronger if Hao-Ai has nothing to do, and because he is currently busy with Lin's matter, the magic is somewhat weak to let him focus on his current mission. He complains about the situation a little, then remembers that he promised Lin to take the children from school with him. After picking them up, they try to cross the street to the park to play a little, but a speeding truck hits Lin. The ambulance comes to take her. Hao-Ai calls her father, telling him that the girl has been in an accident. The father rushes to the hospital, very worried and afraid that he is too late to apologize. As soon as he arrives at the hospital, the doctor tells him that it is too late, the girl left them at a young age. He grieves deeply for her and for what he did to her. The shock is that Lin is standing in front of him, untouched by any harm. He hugs her and apologizes profusely for his actions. He still loves her, but he was ashamed of his position for leaving her and couldn't muster enough courage to see her again. In another room, Hao Ai is the one who was in the accident, having pushed Lin away from the truck while he suffered the impact and was close to death. If Mei hadn't intervened at the last moment and stopped the truck at its maximum speed, he would have died. He wakes up and finds Ziazi and Tang in front of him, but he faints again. He sees the two children playing in front of him and telling him that these are the most beautiful moments they lived with their parents. They are deeply saddened, as it is time for their departure because Lin's wish has truly come true, so they no longer have a place or existence in this world. They ask their father to take care of their mother, for who knows, maybe they will be real in the future. They ask him never to forget them, for they won't. He promises to grant their requests because they were the reason for one of the major changes in his life. He wakes up from the coma and finds Lin sleeping next to him. The first thing he does is flirt with her and praise her beauty. Conclusion of Season 1. After a month, it is time to leave the hospital. As soon as his feet touch the outside, he steps on dog poop. Swuli comes to comfort him, but he tells her he feels less safe when he is with her. Then all the girls come, one after the other, to take him home. The problem is who he should choose. The situation between the girls seems dangerous. So, while they are busy, he decides to withdraw without being noticed. But Swuli pulls off an old trick to manage to kidnap Hao Ai and take him away. He tells her she is committing a crime now, but she replies that she will commit a worse crime for him if he wants. He asks for mercy from her. On the rooftop of one of the buildings, Mei is happy that she helped Hao Ai finish and solve the chocolate problem. She says that love is not an equation made by magic, love is a sacrifice, hope, and trust built through the obstacles of life. She is happy to take a vacation after these wonderful incidents. But her vacation is quickly postponed after she hears one of the girls in the building cursing Hao Ai for what he did and for leaving her, as she is one of the girls affected by the magic. It seems Hao Ai has more work to do.